Hello and welcome to episode 4 of Humane Language, a podcast which features conversations about language, communication, and humane connection. Today, I'm speaking with David McGuire from Windhover B2B. David is a business to business copywriting and creativity consultant, speaker, and coach. He has spent the last 2 decades working as a copywriter, trainer, creative director, and strategist. And to quote one of his clients, what David doesn't know about B2B copywriting isn't worth knowing. High praise indeed. So recently, David has been researching how generative AI, or more specifically large language models, have changed the way people search for information online, and what that means for businesses who rely on their website to sell their products or services. So I'm very excited to talk to David today about his research, about what businesses can do to adapt to this change in search behavior, and how they can optimize their website for AI searches. Hello and welcome, David.
Hello, thank you so much for having me. It's lovely to catch up with you.
I'm so pleased and honored that you're joining me today for this episode. And as I just mentioned in the introduction when we were chatting, my relationship status with AI is somewhat complicated.
As it rightly should be for any thinking person.
I suppose so. And as I was saying earlier, I personally, I'm not using generative AI tools at the moment. I avoid them wherever I can because I have some environmental and ethical issues that I'm still trying to come to terms with.
And rightly so.
And rightly so, I think so. I've been seeing your content recently on LinkedIn about GEO, and we'll delve into what that is in a moment. And it's actually really helped me to understand something, and that is what I think about AI. It doesn't really matter when I do my work because the world is changing and customers and people are using different ways to search for information now. And so I feel I need to serve my clients well and make sure they're still being found. So
yeah, I think so. And also it's not necessarily just about consciously going out and using a ChatGPT, a Gemini, a Claude. You know, these things are coming to the search engines. As you know, if you Google, you've got Google AI overview there already.
It's in your eyeballs before you even can
ignore
it.
And what was the search result is way down the page already. I'm getting these little adverts from Google, make AI mode your default, and it's like, no thanks. But it feels like the default. And so lots and lots and lots of people are going to be using Google's AI mode first, even if they're not intentionally going to a ChatGPT or something like that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's being pushed onto the consumers more and more. And I think it will eventually feel quite natural to have that AI summary at the top of the page. And maybe over time, our inclination to scroll further will kind of lessen. So I guess we do have to adjust to that reality. But before we delve properly into the topic, I just to help us set the scene, could you share a few words about what your work as copywriting and creativity consultant is like? What's a typical day in the life of David look like?
Oh, there's no such thing as a typical day in the life. But what I do is I help B2B marketers who want to make better content. So that might be writing coaching. That might be training sessions around how to write simply and readably without losing authority. But it might be something more complicated than that. So I had one project where a big company had many sort of agency and creative suppliers, internal and external resources, and they wanted to unify and standardize the way they do briefing. So I had to talk to everybody, find out what they needed, find the common ground, create a briefing process, and then train everybody in how to use it. So that's one level where it's really, really complicated.
Yeah.
At a more simple level, it might just be helping people to come up with less boring ideas for their content.
I love that. So in a way, you're combining the strategy work, but you still also actively get to flex your copywriting muscles when you then create the documents and the content itself.
Yeah, I'm never straying very far from the writing. Whisper it quietly. If clients ask me very nicely, I do occasionally write the odd thing.
Yeah. Amazing. I was reading your LinkedIn bio a few weeks ago, and you'd written there that you used to work obviously as the creative director for Radix Comms, and I think your favorite thing
Yeah.
was to hog the best copywriting projects.
Oh yeah, Radix. Yeah, I was.
Yeah,
Yeah, when I was creative director there, I mean
that's the
that's the
perk.
job. That's the perk, right? But also, I should say that what I would think of as being the best copywriting jobs might also be, not what the other writers would
True.
enjoy some of the time. Like, I have to come up with ideas and this, that, and
Yeah,
the other, and there are different kinds of writers with different kinds of strengths. And
that's
I think
very true.
part of the reason I was creative director there,
Yeah,
was more about pushing clients in new and more interesting directions and
yeah,
that
love
kind
that.
of thing. So just because I felt like they were the best writing jobs, others would rather maybe sit there and write a really, really detailed white paper, which I
Yeah,
would hate.
fair news. And then, so tell me, maybe it's quite an obvious question, but kind of what made you deep dive into AI and generative AI, and what companies now have to do to adjust to that new reality?
Sure. I mean, I've always sort of been interested in what's next and what's out there and what's usable and how we can use it. I mean, I did
Mm,
the same thing when social media came in. I mean, I feel often like the fun thing is to look at the tech and the content and the formats kind of the way that a skateboarder looks at architecture. It's like, okay, well, you think it's used for this. What else can we use this for? How else can we use this? So that's always sort of been my instinct.
yeah,
Um, but the more I looked into it, the more I quickly began to feel that while everybody was talking about the impact of AI writing stuff,
mm,
it felt like it was going to be much, much bigger when AI started reading stuff.
right,
And everything. Okay, it can help you write in certain ways, and we can talk at length about how much or how little to use AI when you're writing things. But um, when anything that you write is going to be read, summarized, interpreted by AI, knowing how it's going to do that
yeah,
is a really big deal for any content that you create digitally.
yeah, absolutely. And we had that with SEO, didn't we? That we had to make
Sure.
sure that search engines are easily able to find and dissect your content and then be able to
Hmm.
present it on the search engine results page. So that is nothing new, I guess, in that sense, that we're just adapting to a new tool. But I think not everyone really, or many people at the moment, understand just how to go about and do that. So
Yeah.
yeah, what is it? How have we gone from SEO to GEO? What do you
Sure.
think is like the main difference there?
I actually think the main difference is kind of a mindset change. So GEO, generative engine optimization. So it's writing in a way that makes it easier for large language models to understand what your content is about and then to use your content when it's creating results. Um, but I think that it's part of a bigger mindset shift where, you know, a lot of people say, well, why would I do this? Because I'm not getting traffic
Right.
so much from, some people do, some people get traffic from ChatGPT and things, but, I'm not going to get traffic from Copilot or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And it's actually stopping thinking about the click and stopping thinking about the traffic, thinking about actually where your audience is getting their information from now. So it's which may involve them never coming to your website. So
Yeah.
how do you still have a say? How do you still have visibility in that conversation? So that's sort of the big mindset thing. There are technical things, whereas it used to be about keywords and about the search engine understanding that your website was a good place to get information on a certain keyword. And it's much more now thinking about the questions people ask and thinking about intent and
Yeah.
thinking about what they're looking for and how you can help the AI formulate an answer to a question rather than just put a keyword in the right
Yeah.
place in the right page. Some of the things are the same, like structured data is still really, really important, and
Yeah.
having the right words in there is really important. But it's not so much about kind of, keyword stuffing is actually shown to reduce the,
Yeah.
your visibility a lot of the time. So stuff like that, it's stuff like writing style and format seems to be much more important than it was before. I say seems to be because all of these algorithms and they're all black box systems.
Yes.
So it's all based on the experiments that people are doing
Yeah.
out in the world and what they see seems to work. And then the other thing to think about it's everywhere. So it's not just about your website. It's about what the AI thinks of you as an entity. Are you someone who is worth listening to
Yeah.
based upon, your website, but also, maybe what people are talking about on Reddit, maybe how other people reference you, maybe, how nice an intro you get when you're on a podcast. Thank you very much for that, because that will help. It's about having a clarity and a consistency
Yeah.
of the message across many formats in many places. You as an entity in the internet, not just your website. So I think those are probably some of the
Yeah.
main big mindset shifts. But
That's so
a
interesting.
lot of the things that were in SEO are still an important part of the mix.
Yeah. And it's so interesting. And I mean, I've always had a complicated relationship with marketing
Sure.
metrics because,
Hmm.
I think in our search to kind of make sense of all the data that we now have available, we kind
Mm.
of trying to, understand how people come to our website, how long they stay, what makes them do
Yeah.
things. But actually, people are a little bit more complex than that. And I always felt like just because you've got lots of traffic coming to your site doesn't mean they necessarily convert. Just because they hit on certain pages doesn't mean they're going to buy. And I
Yeah.
think that element of mystery, I guess, still remains whether you focus on SEO or GEO. But I guess one of the things that used to be true for B2B content is that if you put a blog post out there about a certain topic, ask a question, you answer that question in your blog content, Google will show you up. Then that person will click on your blog, they'll read
Hmm.
the article, and hopefully, if you've done a good job, they will then continue on to other parts of your website.
Yeah.
Now, with generative AI, that answer is already being given within the AI tool.
Yeah.
So, what can B2B marketers do to then actually elicit that next step of bringing people to their websites? Is there a way to actually influence that?
There is somewhat. I mean, I hope that um, people will increasingly pay attention to the sources that AI
Mm,
is using to create things. You can do that now. There are, in ChatGPT, there are slash commands you can use, say citations required, and actually look at the citations and look at where it got the information
mm,
from that it's used to formulate these results. And then if
yeah,
you put something in there that is interesting, people can go and dig in further. But I think some of it is about moving away from that information level content, because anything that is there on the internet, it is common to everybody now. Anything that is in the latent space of a large language model, which is, the library, the massive library of vectors. All it is just statistical analysis of how different words relate
yeah,
to each other. But anything that is in there is owned by everybody. So how is anything that you create better than somebody just asking ChatGPT? So it's a lot about having identifiable people, having experts, having a point of view and doing stuff that's new, stuff that's authoritative, stuff that's somewhat more in depth than
Yeah.
you might want to trust an AI with before it starts getting into hallucinations and things.
Yeah, really interesting. And I think one of the things I actually like about AI, the AI summary on Google, is that
Mm,
you do at least get the sources. You know, it kind of comes up, the link is there automatically,
mm,
which I appreciate because I like to know where my stuff comes from. But yeah, it did make me think, like, in a completely unrelated example of recipes. And you know, there's
mm,
thousands of people out there creating beautiful blogs with very cool recipes, and you know, you search for something and you used to be able to, or you used to click on the actual person's recipe, and they
mm,
probably earned some money through the advertising on that page. And I don't care, like they've put that
mm-hmm.
time in. But now it
Yeah,
just all comes up in the AI search result, and it's like, well,
yeah,
that person is now no longer earning
yeah.
that, you know, advertising revenue. And so in a similar way, it's like, I suppose it's important to find the reason why people then might want to click onto your website to then actually continue that journey.
Yeah, I mean, that's one way of doing it.
Mm,
That's one way of doing it. I think that I can imagine that for people who have a name, and are known, or have a following as, say, a chef or something like that,
mm,
you could maybe go back to physical cookbooks,
yeah.
and having them in paper and never putting that online,
Mm,
and being very hot on your IP, very hot on your copyright, so that
yeah.
stuff never appears online.
Yeah.
Um, because anything that goes online, the AI will find it, and the AI will eat it, and the AI will regurgitate it. Um, and that's one of the things that's we mentioned. That's one of the ethical problems
Yeah.
about AI. And I'm saying this as someone who's almost certainly a large amount of my writing is sitting in there.
Yeah.
Um, it's sitting in the large, in the late, or the statistical analysis of it, I should
Yeah.
say, is sitting in the latent space, getting used by marketers so that they don't have to use my friends who are copywriters.
Yeah.
You know, it's
Yeah.
like
It's
we
all
have
a little bit
contributed to our own
morally,
demise.
yeah,
Yeah, and so
difficult, complex.
I think there will be more stuff will happen offline, because you
Mm.
get more control of the user experience, get more control of the brand experience. You know, like, I imagine now is a really interesting time to be a company that specializes in direct mail, that is a company that specializes in live events,
Yeah.
and stuff like that, stuff that the AI can't get its hands on yet,
Yeah. Do you
because I
think
can
we'll see the
imagine that
return of the gated content? You know, where people have to put in their emails to get access to a white paper or particular PDF.
honestly, no. And I'll tell you why. Um, I imagine that you would get a rise in people trying that,
Mm.
but now I think that, again, I'm always trying to think of things from the user's point of view, from the
Yeah.
reader's point of view, and now it's easier than ever. It's easier than ever to get information, to get content. The level of um, value, added value, that I would need from an ebook before I put my details in somewhere
Yeah.
has gone so much higher.
Yeah.
Because if I want to read 3,000 words on a subject, I can just ask AI to splurge out 3,000.
So true.
Will it be good? I don't know. Some of it will be good, and some of it won't.
Yeah.
But the baseline for the extra value that you have to give is so much higher now. Like, there
Yeah.
are people, like there are, and again, one of the things that's interesting now is the role of, like, influencers in B2B and stuff like that, because there are, I think, people who I would put my details in to go to a gated content
Mm.
to hear from. There are people that, I know their stuff is good, and so, like, um Like, do you know Nick Parker, who does who's a really great voice and tone guy, has a an email, has a Substack called Tone Knob, which is a brilliant
Okay.
name. Um, and he has a paid subscription Substack,
Yeah. I was just
because
thinking about
people know
Substack as
he's so
well. Yeah.
good. Because people
Yeah.
know he's so good, and if people know that you're good, then maybe. But if it's just like, am I going to put my details in to find out what this vague B2B brand says about a
Yeah.
subject? No, I don't see it
Yeah.
personally.
That's fair
But
enough.
that's just me trying to intuit, what users and customers will do, and I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, but it's really interesting that you mentioned Substack. Obviously, like I use Substack
Mm,
for the Humane Language podcast and my
mm,
articles that I write, and I definitely feel like I'm personally shifting more to the point of like, rather than going to a big website where
mm.
it's congregating lots of different articles, I'd be quite happy now to support specific people writing about
Yeah.
specific things once a
Hmm.
week. Like one of them is Portugal Decoded. It's a lovely newsletter that tells me every week what's going on in Portugal society, in the economy, in
Mm.
politics. And because I'm still learning Portuguese, like I don't always understand everything. And this is a journalist decoding that every week for everyone who wants to read it. And that's an
Mm.
amazing value for me, so much so that I'm happy to pay a couple of euros a month or whatever to support that individual contributor. So it can definitely work. And I sometimes think in this sort of age of disinformation where no one really knows what's true anymore, I
Yeah.
think that trust is definitely something that people then might actually want to pay for.
Yeah,
Really, really
I could
interesting.
see that. Yeah, yeah, that kind of really high quality, curated,
Mm,
something that is just for you, really relevant to your interests. Like
yeah.
the thing about AI flooding the world with very bog standard content
Mm,
is the bar is so much higher if before you even register.
yeah.
And one of the things you were talking about, why I was interested in GEO, why I'm
Mm,
interested in this stuff, is everyone's talking about AI taking copywriters' jobs away. Which to an extent it definitely has.
yeah.
Like I hosted the National Copywriting Conference a couple of weeks ago, and people are worried.
Yeah.
They really are. And the vibe was really interesting. It was a very important event for that reason, I think, for people to kind of get together and
Yeah.
believe in the power of what they do again. But the thing about the GEO, like writing style, is really
Mm,
important. Quality of the information and the people that you get the information from, the authority is really important. And
right.
so stuff that the best writers are really good at
Yeah.
is going, that stuff's going to become the price of admission
Yeah.
if you really want to continue to get value from content, to get a return on investment from your content.
Yeah. Really, really interesting. And I think you mentioned in one of your LinkedIn posts a few weeks ago about the sort of fluency, authority, and
Mm,
flow as part of that writing style that anyone who still wants to be noticed today
yeah.
really has to
Mm.
own and yeah, perfect, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. Some of the things are quite easy um, uh, to quantify, and some of them are really difficult. Like some of them are really vague. So yeah, so what I did was, because nobody really knows what the algorithms are, I looked at sort of a dozen different sources, academic papers, Google, agencies, things like that. And I literally just listed all of the tips, and I got, I think, about 48, 49
Wow.
different tips. But then I just focused on the ones that people agreed on.
Right.
And then I made a list of the dozen that had the highest rates of agreement.
I
And so I
have this
made
list here. I've printed it out for myself.
oh, amazing.
I love
Yeah,
it.
there it is. Oh,
There you
good.
go.
Thank you. Yeah, and these are the ones that are about, again, my lens that I look on the world is writing. So
Yeah.
these are the tips that affect how you write.
Mm.
There are other things that are influencing GEO as well. Like, writing is not the entire picture,
Yeah.
but these are the dozen writing tips that were most commonly agreed on. Yeah,
Really
and some of them are
interesting.
just like fluency and flow, and people talk a lot about that. Nobody really quantifies what it means. It seems to involve using quite a lot of conjunctions and having like a logical flow. So,
Yeah.
because and because and a however, and all of these
Yeah.
ands and buts, and getting all your conjunctions in there. And then some of them are like readability scoring. That's a drum I've been beating for a while now, but it's
Yeah.
right there. It's there in Word. You can get your readability score for anything that you are writing. And it's not perfect, but it's it's an interesting guideline. I view it
Yeah.
as bowling with the bumpers up, on the sides of your bowling lane.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. And especially for, I guess, B2B content, you do want to be authoritative, and there's sometimes people are like, oh, just let me put that jargon in because,
Hmm.
it'll make them think I know what I'm talking about. But actually the readability and the logical flow is probably so much more important to anyone looking at your product or your service than it is just to put in the buzzwords.
Yeah, yeah, to an extent, but also jargon and being very careful to separate jargon from buzzwords.
Mm,
So as a writer, when I'm talking about jargon, I'm talking about the specific internal language of an industry, of a
yeah.
sector, and that stuff, the AI will expect to see it. If you are writing about the automotive industry,
Yeah.
it'll expect you to talk about, vehicles and tier one suppliers and braking systems and,
Yeah.
a having an Ethernet harness or whatever it is. Like,
Sure.
it will expect those things, and also if you're writing in the language that your reader is using, if your reader's using those terms every day,
Mm,
that will be in the AI searches that they make. All of those things are important.
mm,
It's the other bits of complexity. It's okay, just because I'm writing about how to surface a triple widget flagellator, I don't have to do that in 40-word sentences, right? I
yeah.
don't have to say exemplary where I mean good. I
Yeah.
don't have to use passive voice. I don't have to say, it would be prudent to procure a maintenance solution forthwith. None of those are words. There are simpler ways to say all of those words
Yes. For
without
sure.
undermining the technical specificity, which is where the authority comes from. So being very careful about technical jargon, as long as your audience understands that you're not just using it to show off,
Mm, mm.
you're using it
Interesting.
in context. It's a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess the good writing, the good structure within the content then has to go hand in hand with a good structure of the website itself, right? I saw that also that you mentioned that the actual website structure and the page structure needs to be really good too for AI to
Sure. Yeah.
use
I
it.
mean, yeah, we're getting into the areas where, again, I'm a writing guy. I'm not a technical guy,
That's right.
but yeah. So structured data is
Mm,
really important. So having the right schemas behind the scenes, so that the AI understands what it's looking at, is really important. And then going back to the structure of the writing on the page, putting it using more subheadings than you might have already done.
yeah.
Sometimes having internal navigation, if it's a long page, having having an index and having a menu for the content. And then some things, I think that I would probably advocate for anyway, which is starting with a 2-sentence summary of the thing you need to know from this page is this.
Mm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Which I think is effectively a nutshell paragraph, is never a bad way to
Yeah.
start a long and complicated piece of content.
Yeah.
A lot of these things are just about good writing. And then some of them are being intentional about having more of a chunk block-based structure where you're formulating answers to questions.
Really interesting. And if you don't mind me asking,
Sure.
when you just mentioned it, what would you say are sort of the hallmarks of quality writing? What are the things people should really? I mean, there's probably like 100, but
Yeah.
but is that sort of your top tips?
Quality. So, do you mean quality writing in general, or do you mean quality writing from a GEO point of view? And when you say a hallmark, are we looking for a vibe, or are we looking for
Good
something that is specific and objective?
Well, I guess let's focus it on the GEO perspective. Like, what would be good quality writing mean in that context? And I guess you're talking specifically about B2B, so maybe.
Yeah. I think from that point of view, something with authority, something that always makes it clear why you are worth paying attention to on this subject. So, that will be showing some of your credentials, showing, naming the author, showing who the author is, bringing in credible third-party sources and linking to where you got your information from, and making it but also quite easy to digest quickly. Like, what if I looked at this page for 10 seconds, what would I get from it? Is there meaning in your subheadings? Are there bullet points? Are there lists? Are there things like that? And thinking about what is the intent of someone who is coming here? What information do they want? How can I make it easy for them to get that information? As far as like a kind of a metric goes, I talk a lot about readability and readability scoring, as I've said. Within that, the statistic that I always come back to as just a quick way to improve people's writing, particularly in B2B, is sentence length.
Right.
Not all sentences should be short. You need a variety of sentence lengths, but average sentence length. When clients say to me, here's a piece of content that I really like, that I find really engaging, that I find easy to read, but is not too dumbed down, I look at it, by magic, the average sentence length is always 15 or 16 words. I don't know why. It's just
so interesting.
That's how it just tends to be. And those stats are available in Word now. If you go to the editor and the document stats button, you can see your average sentence length. So
that's a really interesting one.
And again, I'm really very clear. I'm not saying every sentence should be about 15 words long. Like, you can have a 5-word sentence, you can have a 25-word sentence. There should be a balance. But the balancing point, I always think, is about 15 words. I know there are other copywriters that hate that advice, by the way, but it's just something that I've noticed.
Yeah, and I think that too. I think, like, if I have to read a sentence twice, and you're more likely to switch off because everything is so busy, and everyone's content overload is real, and we're all kind of, our attention span shortens all the time. So if you can't get through to someone at the first time, you probably won't get a second chance. So it's important to make it clear and easy to read and easy to flow through, right?
Yeah, the point you've made there about starting the sentence over actually chimes with a really nice, quite an old piece, I think, of copywriting wisdom, which is, you read it out loud, and if you falter, alter.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah. So if you have to read a sentence twice, you have to start the sentence over, change the sentence.
Nice. Feels like good life advice in general, doesn't it?
I know, right? Ooh.
If you falter,
alter. Life coach. Yeah,
life
love
coach.
it.
Another avenue to explore. I love it.
When AI takes all our jobs, yes.
I guess what I feel like I'm hearing is that essentially you still need to make sure you write for humans, right? Like
Yeah.
we had this whole thing with SEO in the past where people were just writing these blog articles that were
Mm,
just like saying the same thing over and over again with slightly different synonyms and keyword stuffing, and no one
yeah.
was interested in that content, and eventually it got penalized. And sort of with the EEAT guidelines from
Yes.
Google, it kind of moved much more towards a writing for humans, but structuring the content so both humans and machines can easily digest it and understand it and sort of index it, whether it's in a machine or in our brains. So I feel from that perspective, it's kind of still good quality content is still the same. The same
Hmm.
rules still apply, but now, as you said, there's a few more technical things that we need to just think about, I suppose.
There are. I think the other thing that is nice about it, as far as, and people say, online, well, good geo writing is just good writing. And if you are writing with your audience in mind, and you're writing in mind making it easy to get the information out quickly,
Mm.
yeah, I mean, I write for B2B decision makers. There's not been one invented that has spare time to read your content. Like,
No such
like I,
persona
I,
exists.
I ask any client what their audience is like, and the word
Yeah,
busy comes up, right?
yeah,
Um, and if you have those people in mind, and you're writing something really clear, really digestible, that is also valuable and new
mm.
and well researched for those people, then what the AI wants and what the people want are indeed aligned.
Yeah,
The thing that I think is nice, and one of the things that I think is new, if copywriters, if marketers can get hold of it, is that GEO gives us another objective reason to go to stakeholders and advocate for this kind of writing.
yeah,
Stakeholders who would cross out your word good and put the word exemplary as if you
yeah,
didn't know that word already.
yeah,
you know
yeah,
who want to make it complicated, who and oftentimes when we're dealing with subject matter experts and stakeholders from school onwards, they've been used to being the cleverest person in the room.
mm, mm.
They will have got very good marks for English or whatever language you're working in at school, right? And so from their mind, they think they understand what high status writing looks like.
Yeah,
And that's understandable. So the more we can, generally speaking anyway, I mean, it was even the case before GEO, the more we can get away from my preferred style of writing is this, your preferred style of writing is that. I'm a better writer than you, no, you're not. The more you can get away from that subjective, opinion based thing and
yeah,
go, here are some objective reasons and guidelines that we need to fulfill from a QA point of view. It's another way to have that conversation without having that conversation,
yes,
so that you're
yes,
not bringing opinions to a data fight. So in a funny way, GEO might make it easier
yeah.
to get stakeholders to agree to produce good, digestible, readable, interesting content.
Really, really good point. And then I suppose when I think about the buyer journey of someone who, buys a
Yeah,
B2B product, I suppose they might start on ChatGPT, Gemini,
oh,
wherever.
100%.
But
Yeah.
typically, they're not the ones to just necessarily press the buttons, but there's other stakeholders involved. So there might be presentations on we're going to use this tool or we're going to use this
Hmm.
provider, and so they will have to back that up. They can't just go to ChatGPT and say, "Oh yeah, ChatGPT said this company is great," and then just
Yeah.
say, "Ta-da!" in a meeting. They have to, they probably then have another level of research where they then might go to something like Google search engine results page and then actually
Mm.
physically click through to that website. So I guess there is another element of making sure that from the traditional SEO perspective, your website still performs super well, because the follow-up research for as they kind of go further down that funnel to buying from you, then everything just needs to be shit hot, basically.
Yes, I think so. But then also not just on your website,
Mm,
but everywhere.
yes.
And because people will, um, as part of their research, as part of that journey,
Mm,
they may well via the AI, because So the first step will be to get a shortlist
Yeah.
of contenders, and that's probably AI is probably going to be doing that work 90% of the time now,
Yeah.
easily, I would say. And sometimes, if it's not a very complicated sale, that's all you need. Like
Yeah.
I met someone last week that I think 8 or 9 out of their last 10 new business conversations had come from them being shortlisted and recommended by ChatGPT.
Amazing, huh?
And so they've done something well, and ChatGPT really likes them, and it keeps sending people their way. And sometimes it's just that.
Mm.
And then, but then the next step might be to do that sniff check. Okay, that looks good. Tell me more about this company, this brand, this product. What are they good at? What are they bad at? And yeah, that will pull in some stuff from your website, probably. But it might also, again, the amount that Reddit is showing up in search results, I think, varies wildly by the platform and over time. I think they had a course correction where marketers started absolutely fire hosing Reddit with fake comments because it was just a shortcut into the LLM results.
Wow.
But they might go to Reddit. They might go to Trustpilot. They might
Okay.
go to Glassdoor. Often, I see Glassdoor showing up a lot of the time. All of these other places. So it's all of those things being shit
Yeah.
hot as well.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
really interesting. So essentially, AI is sort of research on steroids, and it's doing a lot of the heavy lifting that someone would have done with manual research of researching a new B2B partner in the past. But now it happens at the click of a finger. So if nothing else, you just need to make sure that across all the touch points of the internet, you need to be represented in a good light, right?
Yeah. Again, so really good time. I would suggest really good time to be in digital PR. And understand all that sentiment
Yes.
analysis, understand how to get in front of bloggers, how to get in front of podcast people, how to get in, and all the places like kind of Reddit and Quora and anywhere people have opinions
Yeah.
online, and having the tools to do that broad sentiment analysis, work out where you're weak and where you're strong. But yeah, from the GEO point of view, before you even get to that, you have to be on that shortlist. If someone says, I want to buy an egg sorting machine, which brands should I consider? What are the best egg sorting machines?
Yeah.
You kind of want to be
Yeah.
on that list of 3 or
Definitely.
4. Yeah.
Yeah. And so do you think in B2B in particular, there is kind of a new need to kind of be cited in media for, the thought leaders from your company or your product sort of being listed in like Forbes, or I don't know, sort of having those external validation links?
Yes. I mean, I think sure. I think that because in the past it was all about the inbound links to your website. Like all of these things were important, but they were important because they gave, they would give you an inbound link to your domain, and that would
Yeah.
increase your domain authority, and all that lovely search engine juice would come flowing in from all of these other places. Kind of like like tributaries into a river.
Yeah. I like it.
But now that inbound link is not necessary. It's the AI figuring out that you are the same entity.
Yeah.
And so the nomenclature, like whether you call, something a product or a service or a solution, or how you talk about the nomenclature of the thing will make it easier for the AI to understand that it's the same thing across all of these platforms.
So there needs to be consistency across what you call your service or your product or your feature, so it doesn't think it's like lots of different singular things.
That kind of stuff. Yeah.
Really, really
That's, again, we're
interesting.
getting into the technical, clever
Yeah.
stuff now, that is down to like naming strategist. I think it will really I think, put an extra level in messaging as well.
Yeah.
When people, write product messaging, or they write brand messaging and positioning. Because you kind of want to be consistent with the sentiment
Yeah.
and but not be using exactly the same wording every time.
Yeah.
And the wording being context aware, context relevant, but the sentiment being consistent, and the naming of the thing being
Yeah.
consistent.
Really interesting. In the world of translation, we're always really hot on glossaries. So, normally when there's a new project, you onboard a new client, the first thing you do is you produce a list of glossary terms that always need to be the same and then need to be translated in the same so people don't get confused. And especially when you go from one language to another, there's probably 3 different ways of saying the same thing. So to keep that all consistent, I guess, is super important.
I remember the difficulties. I used to do a lot of work with forklift truck content and translating. Yeah, well, it's B2B, isn't it? There's every kind of geeky niche, but is it Gabelstapler or something? But
Gabelstapler.
Or something like that, isn't it?
Yeah, Gabelstapler.
Yeah. But translating it into, again, it's like creation, because I think there were ways that people would try and translate forklift truck, like the words individually and things like that. And actually, no one in Germany would ever say that. It's like this, and yeah, everything just needed to be checked by local expert. I mean, all of this stuff. This has been, your bread and butter for so many years, but it's fascinating.
Yeah, absolutely.
To get the specifics right, which is another new challenge for AI.
Well, I want to thank you so much for chatting with me today. I'm just going to hover this in front of the screen again. So this is your checklist. And if that's all right with you, I'll be sure to link to this in the comments for the show so people can have a look. 12 important writing checklist items that people should have a look at when they write for GEO, AI optimized content. Is there anything we've forgotten? Anything we should mention?
I mean, we could talk about this all day, but yeah, I mean, if people want to print out the checklist and wave it under the noses of stakeholders, they go, I'm sorry, we have to have a readability score of 55 or whatever, because David said so. Blame me, that's fine. I'm very happy for people to blame me while they're having their conversations with their stakeholders and subject matter experts.
Well,
but no, this has been so much fun. Thank you so much for inviting me.
And thank you so much. I honestly, like I said in the beginning, I think your content has really helped me understand that, it doesn't really matter what I think about AI. People are using it. So we need to adapt. And we, as writers and marketers, we have a duty of care for our clients to make sure their websites are being found and that their clients are coming to their website. So, we have to adapt, right? So I really appreciate your advice and for chatting here with me. And
thank you.
if anyone wants to go and check out David on LinkedIn, he continually shares great tips and tricks for copywriting. So please do check him out.
Thank you.
Thank you, David. It's been a pleasure.
It has. Thank you so much. Cheers.